Hey there, it's Robert Ohado, intuitive and astrologer, and welcome back to another astrology video. This time we're going to be talking about the upcoming, I'm doing it ahead of time this time, what is going to be the full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus of 2023. So I just did, about a week ago, a video stream on the new moon solar eclipse in Libra. And here we are 2 weeks later. Well, not quite. We're going to be getting ready for another eclipse. As they say, it's eclipse season. And I'm here to take those threads from the last video and evolve them forward into this live stream / video. So if you're watching on demand, it's a video. If you're watching live, it's a lot of people live, it's a live stream. So welcome to this this event, really. It's going to be very, very powerful. Now, I want to kind of start back a little bit with where we were in the last video. So if you haven't seen that video, you can go check it out. I did a really in-depth dive into the last eclipse. That was the new moon solar eclipse in Libra. And the thing to understand, and this is why I'm saying you might want to go watch that video, is that all of the eclipses are connected. So there's usually, very rarely do you have 3 eclipses in an eclipse season, but that does happen once in a while. But there's usually 2. One is going to be a new moon eclipse. One is going to be a full moon eclipse. And each has a different energetic, but they share a common thread of alchemy together. So thinking back to what I covered in the last video, and I'll kind of recap here for those of you who maybe didn't see it, just so you can kind of follow along. We looked a lot at the human heart and cosmic heart as it relates to the pattern of Libra, and how we're coming together as a culture, a society, and as individuals into this journey from the human heart to the cosmic heart. Now, I'm going to give some definition to that as is appropriate for what I want to do with you here in this particular video, but I really can't encourage enough for you to go back and watch that video and then come watch this one. You can watch this one first, but yeah, I think you're just going to get so many more layers about the connectivity of the energetics right now. So all that energy from the last eclipse, here we are a week later after the eclipse, and then in a week, it's going to be the next eclipse, which will be the full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus. We are at midpoint here, and the energy is shifting to a different alchemy per the activated zodiac signs that are involved with this eclipse. So you have the sun in Scorpio, and then the moon in Taurus. Now, a lot of times astrologers will talk about eclipses, but never talk about the sun. They'll just focus only on the moon and the archetype of the moon and what's being lit up and then eclipsed and then lit up again through the eclipse process. But I can't stress enough, as you will soon see, the necessity to talk about the sun and that archetype, which is Scorpio this time, because that's the energy that's actually lighting up the Taurus moon. And that's what creates a full moon, just astronomically speaking in the first place. But then you have the earth coming in between the sun and the moon and creating what is a lunar eclipse. So I want you just to keep tracking with me in terms of all these pieces, keep them holographically in mind as we continue to go forward and explore all of them. And we did just experience this energy of the new moon solar eclipse in Libra. Keep that right front and center. And that energy is evolving. And that's what this video is going to be about, and about how to best work with this upcoming eclipse of this full moon, and what the energetics are and how they're different and why you should care. Because, you really should care, because let me tell you what's coming up here. And I don't know, maybe you've been feeling this, a shift in the atmosphere, like a bit of a buzz. You can feel the tides changing. Literally, the moon controls these things, right? But there's something different moving through now than where we were even a week ago. I feel it, I'm sure you feel it, because astrology is what we live. It's just a synchronistic tool to see with archetypal eyes the energetics in play. But just tap into your emotional system, your feeling, and your empathic system with me right now, and sense and track your week. Like this last week, what's felt like it's activating and what's been activated, and where's this shift taking you? See if you can't come up with themes. Get thematic, meaning you look to situations that seem to be emerging in your life consistently, kind of everywhere, whether that's personal relationships, work, the grocery store, getting gas. I mean, you just start to see if you get symbolic, wow, that situation is a lot like the one I'm having at home with my spouse. Huh. That's what I'm talking about. So get a sense of that in the room, and get a sense if you feel as if you might just be headed toward a very important crossroads in your life, or whether we as a collective are heading toward a very important crossroads in our lives. Well, here's the deal. That's exactly what's happening. And this eclipse is all about that crossroads. You're not making up this energy. We are heading towards what I call a fate to destiny moment, a moment of waking up to what's unconscious. And because it's unconscious, it's experienced as fated situations that just seem to repeat. And this crossroads is about, no, stop repeating. It's time to evolve. So having just said that, that is the question at this crossroads. Will you evolve or will you repeat? And that is exactly what we're going to dive into in this video. Now, getting back to it, I used to put music in that little space there. I don't do that anymore because it gets compressed by the way that my software runs the audio, so it just sounds terrible. So if you didn't hear music, I saw comments last time like, there's no music, what's going on? There isn't any music. It's just a pause moment to kind of take in what we're going to talk about through the image, and then now we're going to get down to it. So your sound is fine. It's just I'm changing up kind of how I do that intro and outro. Maybe you've seen some of my past videos where I thought the music was rocking and it really wasn't. So, all right, so let's get into this. The first thing we have to kind of cover to set the framework down is the energy that is activated by a full moon and what a full moon lunar eclipse really even is. So if you think about the full moon, just the full moon, no eclipse involved, we're getting to a state where the moon in relationship, I'm going to go astronomical here for a minute. I love astronomy, and I'm going to show you an image to help this along. But the moon that we are experiencing in a full moon has moved in such a position in relationship to the sun and the earth that as we look at it, it is fully illumined. That's why we call it a full moon, right? So when we're looking at this full moon, it's just a situation, a setup of the way the moon is oriented relative to us and the sun, that we see one side of it completely lit up. Now, let me just show you the astronomy of this real quick so that you can see this image of how the moon and its cycles work. I mean, this is a whole complete image of the sun, and which is going to be to your left, and then the moon, which is going to be to your right in its full glory. Now, in this particular image, the earth is not, first of all, in front of the moon in such a way that it's blocking the sun's light. Just imagine the sun and the earth is off to the side, just hitting the moon in a way where we see it as fully illumined. That's a full moon, and then it goes through these stages, right? A new moon is when the moon is actually in orientation to earth, the dark side of the sun, and we can't see the moon at all because it's not being lit up per our view from Earth, but it is being lit up on the other side, ironically. So this is just to, the thing about astrology is that it's born out of astronomical fact. And what astronomical fact becomes in astrology is synchronistic symbol. So think about what's going on here. We have light, bringing something to light, right? So new moon looks dark, is a time, as I said in the last video, of seed planting, but becoming aware that there's something trying to happen that's new. It's a new moon. It's a time for something new to happen. And then along the way to the full moon, the energy builds within the archetypes that are involved and heads toward this new moon. And then we arrive at this, heads toward the full moon. And then we arrive at the actual full moon. So when you're seeing the full moon, you're seeing how the sun has lit up the moon, in a way where, from our perspective, it's completely illumined. Now, what's going on here? Now let's get into archetypes. Let's get into astrology for a sec. We'll go back to astronomy just to get the eclipse in, and then we're going to zip right back to astrology, because this is how you get to the meaning and the activations involved, and how maybe in your own personal birth chart this is going to roll, is you start to understand it on its own terms first. The technical territory, the archetypal territory, the energies involved. And then we do look at life, what we're living, and we go, okay, let me now take this lens and look at life, and let's see if this fits. And what I love is it does. Astrology shows when you put those lenses on, those archetypal glasses, you're like, oh, that's why that's happening, and that's why that's activating, and that's why I keep having this theme. All right, so the moon has arrived at the opposite position to the sun from our point of view on Earth. And this is all really about because this is true for all full moons. It's about the energetic dynamic that's happening through the archetypes involved with the sun and the moon. So this time is sun in Scorpio, as I mentioned, and the moon in Taurus. The sun in Scorpio matters massively, as I'm going to show you when we get into the actual territory and break it down, because that is what is generating the full moon. It's like Scorpios come over and said, okay, humans, I'm going to animate and bring into awareness, illumine something that's been in your shadow that you do need to see now for your own evolution, or you'll just keep repeating. So because the Scorpio sun, we're in the territory of the shadow itself, because this is actually what Scorpio is all about. It's about our psychology, human psychology. It's about, to some degree, also our psychospirituality. It's about shadow work. It's about our human shadow. And it's also deeply about our emotional system, because this is the territory. It's a water sign. It's the territory of our emotional system, and also our human timeline within an emotional system. Meaning, we could talk about things like trauma here. And what it all comes down to in the end for everybody, whether trauma is or isn't there, is why do we do what we do? And that's a question. When we ask that question, we're asking really our shadow. Why do I do what I do? I need to see now. So a full moon is about that. It's a moment of coming to see with a full illumined view, something about yourself, something about a part of your life, in this instance especially, that needs to evolve now. It's been on repeat. It's time for it to evolve. And the Taurus piece, just for now, is about, hey, if it doesn't evolve, if you do not evolve and you keep repeating, there is a new potential in your field that cannot be birthed, and that's Taurus. It cannot be given form. So something new from the new moon that we just experienced in Libra. So I just brought in relationships and everything. Libra is trying to, in this lunation package, this eclipse package, it's trying to be born into a new form and structure that honors value. This is both Libra and Taurus, beauty, how we treat the earth and each other in physical dynamics. And in this instance, because Scorpio is illuminating everything, how do we do that out of our shadow? What do we do out of our shadow? Are you aware of when you react versus respond? Are you aware of when you react and it's absolutely sabotaging to you and perhaps the other person involved? Are you aware of when you need to somehow hug a dragon in your shadow so that you stop that process and then get to something called conscious choice? That's all within where we are in this eclipse. So that's just, if I was just talking about a full moon, I'd say the same thing I just said to you. However, this is an eclipse. So we've got this energetic call and response and energetic binding between the moon and the sun. And this is actually happening on October 28th. So as I do this right now, it's October 20th, 8 days from now, FYI. And this is coming after this eclipse that we just went through that had a lot to do with relationships and as I mapped the cosmic heart. And we're not done with the cosmic heart. In fact, it's going to guide us here. It comes in as the guide through this crossroads ahead where we ask, am I going to evolve or am I going to repeat? If your cosmic heart isn't involved in the answer, you will repeat. And I'm going to explain why. And to do that, I'm going to have to guide you through 4 different levels of Scorpio, kind of crash course style, and give you a sense of where you're at in those 4 levels and where you're being asked to evolve, or shall we say, level up. Why? Because there's something in your potential with this moon in Taurus, which is also conjunct Jupiter in Taurus retrograde, which I'm going to show the chart. Something in your potential, our collective potential is trying to be born. And will we abort that? Will we gestate that? Will we give birth to that? That's also a question. And that will come out of whether we evolve. If we repeat, it's like taking the road behind us and then just putting it in front of us and calling that the future, because that's all it is. It's the same thing we just did. We're just going to situate it now in front of us and keep driving. And then we're going to call it the future, but it's actually not. We're looping. And so where you want to look in your life is, where are you looping? And where are you looping and you know it for now? I mean, where are you looping and you know it? And are you aware yet of what it would take to stop and evolve? Stop the loop, go somewhere different. I don't know, birth something different out of your potential. So I'm zoning in. Now, when we look at the lunar eclipse here, how does that change the game? Because it does. First, let me get to the astronomy, you know how I roll, of the full moon lunar eclipse, and then we'll talk about the astrology. So let's look at an image. Do you like my images? They're fun. This is what an eclipse looks like when we're talking about a lunar eclipse. So you have the Earth moving in between the sun and the moon, and because of that, it casts a shadow onto the moon. And now you're only going to see this in certain areas of the world. So it's not like everyone's going to see it. And it actually happens for me, where I live in Colorado, during the day. So I'm definitely not seeing this. So it's going to be the other side of the world that's facing the moon at that time, where it's nighttime, that's possibly going to see this actual eclipse. The energetics are still there for everybody, but you've got the Earth coming in between. Now, I want you to image this. Let's go archetypal whilst looking at this image. Image that the sun in Scorpio is sending Scorpio energy to the moon, which is in the opposite sign, which is Taurus. That's the opposite. So when you have an eclipse, you're going to have the sun in one sign, and then the moon will always be in a full moon lunar eclipse. The full moon will always be in the opposite sign. And then both are active, but because we have the sun hitting the moon, I got to come back to camera. What you need to understand about this is the moon is about your subconscious mind, or the unconscious. And actually, the unconscious is not synonymous necessarily with the subconscious. A lot of people speak as if they're the same, and they're actually not. As someone who's really studied the human psyche for 30 years now, what I know to be true is that within the unconscious exists the subconscious, but also the shadow. And the subconscious is more the kind of human-based software we have that a hypnotherapist would access, or that runs the programs of our biology, like it's beating your heart right now, it's pumping your blood, you have cellular processes happening, because the subconscious mind, this data bank in you, is running all that. But what it also does is the subconscious, when we're younger, it comes pre-programmed from family lineage and legacy, and cultural and social legacy as well. And then on top of that, it then recruits archetypes when you're younger. And you're not thinking, this is not a conscious process. It recruits archetypes, patterns when you're younger to help you survive. Now, I can't go down that road too far, or we will, end up 3 hours later talking about the eclipse, because I've done masterclasses in this territory. But I want you to imagine, just for one example, because this might help you locate in this eclipse what's trying to evolve versus repeat. I call the archetypes, the patterns that the subconscious recruits, survival archetypes of adaptation, because they're archetypes that your subconscious is sort of downloading and pulling in to help you survive, i.e. adapt to survival conditions that you're in. So when we're kids, if you're 3 years old, 5 years old, you're not, everything I just said, you wouldn't even, you're just mastering whatever your native language is. You're not like, oh yeah, okay, subconscious, give me that perfectionist archetype. I need that to survive this shame-based culture in my family. Sounds great. But that's one archetype, for example, that I think we all have in common, because we live in a shame-based culture, and a patriarchal shame-based culture, to be more specific. And that is the psychic template of the psyche of the world, for the most part. And each of us will have already, as kids, downloaded something that would help us survive the judgments of perfectionism. What a child is most afraid of is abandonment, in part. There's a few fears. I'm just going to throw that one in for now, because if you're abandoned, you're on your own. And at 3, 2, 5, 6 years old, you're probably not surviving without someone bigger than you, an adult, a guardian, helping you. So we bring in patterns like maybe the people pleaser or shapeshifter. I'll become whatever you want, just so I make sure you value me. Because if you value me, you won't abandon me. These are the computations of the subconscious. Do whatever you must do to make sure that your parents or your guardians don't abandon you. And now if something actually happens where your parents are killed or something, I mean, now we're in a completely different discussion territory of what your psyche could possibly download. But I'm going to keep it in the middle here for you to extrapolate a little for yourself. And I'm going to suggest a course, by the way, that I just put on sale because I knew that you probably might want to go deeper into some of this, that you can check out on my website that I've had up for quite some time. But for now, stay with me. So what this eclipse is going to do, it's going to probably bring up for you something around what I just said, some archetype of survival adaptation. Now, when we're younger, these are genius and brilliant. It's the brilliance of the human psyche and the laws of the human psyche. And back to my original point, the subconscious is not synonymous necessarily with the unconscious. It is contained within the unconscious, as is the shadow. And I could show you diagram after diagram of how I see that intuitively and how I learned about this as an intuitive. But what I want you to just imagine is you've got this recruiter in you called the subconscious mind that is programmable, but becomes preloaded with software. And then you do additional downloading once you're born. And by the way, the process never stops. But what we mostly find keeps us in repeat is that we're running the software that we downloaded at 5 years old to survive our families or our societies or cultures. We're running it and we're 40. It's the same software. We're running it and we're 30. We're running it and we're 60. You get my point. I mean, we're still repeating. And then you look around, and if I were to say to you, I want you to adult up for a minute. Let's pull the adult archetype in you forward and let's look at your life. Do you still need people pleaser software or invisible child software where you kind of become a wallflower and blend in so that maybe you don't get abused? No one sees you. No one who can abuse someone who's invisible. There's a whole bunch of reasons why we might download the invisible child. But I'm going to look at you and go, okay, do you need that now? You as now a mystically maturing adult, which I know that's a process we're all in. No one's got that down yet, by the way. But do you need that now? Do you need that software anymore? And then I'd say, well, what's the karma of running it at this point in your life? This is exactly what this eclipse is asking you. Exactly. It's not only asking you, it's asking the world the same question, countries the same question, governments the same question. Are you going to keep running the software of war and expect that there will never be another war? That you're not right now creating the next generation of terrorism to come, because what does someone do when they see their parents killed and they don't understand? What generates the terrorist archetype? How does this wheel spin? How does this work? And so from personal to collective, find yourself in what I'm saying and where you're at in your own sense of, yeah, Ohado, you're right. I'm running software, and damn it, if it isn't the most sabotaging thing. I am not relating through connection. I contract instead in the software. Or if I connect, it's not the real me. I'm shapeshifted, or I'm pleasing. I'm not really being with my genuine emotions. And that's a Scorpio theme. And what I really feel, because good people shouldn't feel that way. Good people shouldn't feel angry, Robert. So I have an archetype that manages that for me. And that's one way to think of your archetypes. They manage things for you. All of them without exception. All of them do. So if you're like, well, how would I identify my own? I'd say, look at your patterns of behavior. This is just one way. And ask, what does that pattern do? What's its vocabulary, and how does it manage me? So if I said perfectionist, how does the perfectionist talk? This isn't good enough. I need to redo this. This should have happened. This shouldn't have happened. Okay, I've got to get on this. There's language, and what's the behavior? Well, in the behavior pattern of the perfectionist, you never self-appreciate because that's not part of the pattern. You're always looking for what's wrong and how to fix it. And you're always on the fix. I've got to fix this. I got to fix this. I got to make that better. You never just rest and like, damn, that was good. Aren't I brilliant? It's, no, that I could have done that better. And not only are you internally this way, oftentimes we are externally the same, right? We're the same with how we look at people. It's not always true, actually, but a lot of times it is, right? So I hope I'm giving you the lay of the land here so that as I go forward and talk about the eclipse, what it does as a pattern interrupter and shadow revealer, really, you get a sense of, okay, around this time, October 28th, I'm going to have these energetics. The world will too. And these are the options. This is the crossroads. And if I'm really working with it through Robert's brilliant guidance, then, okay, I got this. And you do. You absolutely do. So when you have an eclipse occur, let's come back to the image, and I'll speak through the image again, this time astrologically. The sun is in Scorpio. So the sun is saying, hey, I'm illuminating the pattern of Scorpio in you. Remember, this eclipse is happening not just in the sky, it's happening inside of you and me and everyone. So here's the sun illuminating the moon, which is our unconscious and subconscious and shadow. It's all of that, right? And here comes the earth. Like, I'm going to get in the middle and I'm going to block this conversation for a minute. I'm going to eclipse this light dynamic of the sun illuminating the moon. Now, why? What does this mean? It's interrupting what is the usual kind of looping feedback of a full moon. And it's saying, yeah, okay, Earth has a minute and needs to have a say here. And I'm coming in the middle. I am Gaia. So I'm going to take a minute with all of you. And while we're reflecting on the full moon of Taurus and Taurus themes and dynamics, and which I'm going to get to, I want you to take a minute and think about, because what is the Earth now doing? It's now casting a shadow onto the moon. I want you to take a minute, says the Earth, and think about the shadow that you have within the Scorpio pattern of you, and how you can't get to something new because an eclipse, check this out, it kind of creates a new moon for a minute. That's what a new moon is. The light of the moon is not even there. So I'm going to create, I want something new, and I'm going to block the light for a minute. And what I want that needs to be new is found in Scorpio and Taurus. I want your psyche cleaned up into more of a holistic, loving place where you do shadow work, and you do it so what you birth into the world in real form, Taurus is the most earthy of Earth, is not things like war and climate change and go down the list, but then make it personal to you, where you actually look at, hey, this Earth, Gaia herself is like, hey, I have just as much value as whatever God you're praying to, or whatever pattern you have allegiance to. And if you don't honor that holism of me, well, you're not going to get too far. You're going to keep repeating. And the repeat, especially in a Scorpio pattern, usually takes you out as a karmic effect of sabotaging you enough that it just takes you out. So, or us, as the case may be. Now, I want you to consider that what's happening energetically and archetypally here is you've got this break in the pattern, this moment where the moon or the earth is like, listen, I'm gonna pause button y'all right now and remind you, you're a guest here. I did give you an invite, but you're not here forever. I'll be here long after you. And how do you want to live here? Do you want to live in your fate or your destiny? Which is it? Do you want to create what could be a beautiful Taurian experience of life? Or do you want to keep on with, and now I'm starting to speak from the chart. I should probably pull the chart up pretty quickly here. Do you want to keep carrying on with the shadow Pluto Capricorn things you've been up to that are doing you in? So it's an interesting thing because whenever we speak through astrology, and this is why I love the tool, you're always speaking at the same time through a collective voice as well as an individual. It's the nature of reality and holism. All is one means all is one. And that could be, for example, one of the crossroad questions. Do you believe that you're not of God or the divine? And then I'm just going to riff around. Give me a little room here. And then someone says, yeah, I totally believe that, man. Yeah, Robert, yeah, of course. And then I'll say, well, do you believe everyone is? And you pause and, yeah, of course, all is one. Everyone's part of God. And then all I have to do to shatter some of this flow is say, well, what about Hitler? What about terrorists? What about murderers? I can go down the line. And suddenly I'll watch you go, all is one, but not them. But you can't just take on mystical truth when it's convenient. It's a truth that's universal. We're bound to it. We could sit there with convenience with our human heart and say all is one, but not them. And whoever the them is. And I mean, if you're racist, that's going to be someone who's not white or whatever, right? So, I mean, this can go on and on. I could go into example, but this is the thing to locate in yourself. Because part of this, now that's the pull-in of the human heart, cosmic heart dynamic from the last eclipse, is how do we come to compassion, our edges of compassion? How do we do that? Well, this eclipse is saying you're going to have to do that through some shadow work. And at the levels of Scorpio, I'm going to journey into real quick with you. The first level is the Scorpion. I'm going to mention this for now. Most people don't realize there's actually 4 different alchemical states and symbols of Scorpio as a pattern. It's not just the Scorpion. That's the first stage. And in that stage, we're dealing with the very sort of reptilian part of our brains and the very reactive part of our psyche that wants to sting someone because they called us a name, or sting someone because they stung us. It's that eye for an eye level. It's that level of our human heart and vengeance, and that's the Scorpion. Now I'm going to guide you through Snake, Eagle to Phoenix shortly, but this is part of also what's being interrupted and eclipsed. Now, am I saying anything that isn't already in the atmosphere or floating around as a question in the air? Like, hey, are we going to do eye for an eye this time? Are we going to do something different? What could that be? What would look different in the wars in the world? What would look different in our politics? Is the eye for an eye between Republicans and Democrats? Are we going to keep doing this while the people are not served by any of that? Or what are we doing? So this is everywhere. And it's in you. It's in me. Now, moving through, when you have an eclipse, you're really going through a major shift in the Earth psyche and archetypal grid. It's like the Earth herself goes, I'm going to shake off some of the illusions here. And we're going to get down to baseline territory to talk about, you answer to me. I am Gaia, and you're a guest. And I have certain laws that are called the ecosystem. And if you don't actually move into harmony with my laws, you will, like the scorpion, sabotage yourself through your choices. They're not even choices, they're reactions. They're spell cast. Someone else made that choice for you. If your soul was online and your Phoenix present in the Scorpio part of your power, you wouldn't make that choice because it violates holism. And we're getting raw and real. These metrics do not play. So coming back into this, the way that you want to identify what needs to change for you personally, let's get personal again, is by looking at the archetypes involved, Scorpio and Taurus. So I've talked a bit about Scorpio, and then now let's lean in a bit to Taurus, where Jupiter is retrograde right now, and there's a big activation of the Taurus archetype in culture, society, in you and me. I did, in my Cosmic Guidance package, which is still available, by the way, a deep 6-part series into this cycle. Like, what is the cycle going to bring up? And it's everything I said is happening. So it is this, what are we going to do with the resources, earthly resources of life and the world and Earth herself? Where are we headed? Where are we as a collective and individual going to move forward when it comes to how we relate to money, relate to resources, relate to the Earth, relate to our mortality, relate to, and also and beauty and the value of a more beautiful world, a more beautiful way to live, a more sensual and sensate way to be in the world, where we can actually, I don't know, have a good time, experience some pleasure, and it's genuine. It's not taking some substance and getting high per se in a way that's now the addict. It's a genuine incarnation into embodiment. How are we going to embody what we value? Are we doing it now? So at this crossroads, one of the things to maybe look at is, do I actually embody my values? Or do I say I value something, but then that's actually not what I do? That's not embodiment of your values. That's an incongruency. Where are you incongruent with your values? And we all have these, by the way. We're human. We're flawed. And so, yet, here's the thing. There's karma for that. We never opted out of karma. We just aren't. It's one of the laws our souls chose to work with when we came here to learn from. It's a teacher. It's not a punishment. It's just a teacher. But we're not opted out of school. And we can resent the teacher or get to the lesson. What are we doing? These things could be part of this crossroads for you. Now, because we are connected in this eclipse to the last one, I'm going to point you to your relationships, because that was in Libra. I'm going to point you toward also your victim archetype, how you negotiate fair and unfair in this human life. How do you negotiate what you think is just or justice? How do you arrive at whether, for example, someone should get the death penalty because they murdered someone? Is that something that's part of how you would administer justice or believe justice should be served? Or where are you in all sorts of our areas of what is justice? What is karmic balance? Can you even see the karma for what it really is? Or do you have a karma cover story that so many people live in to protect political identities or other parts of themselves or their lives where they don't want to actually face hard truths? This is where we are. And what this is going to do now, I think it's time to move in a bit here toward the astrology chart, where I'm going to start pulling some things out and then come back into Scorpio, and that's how I'm going to finish out. What I think this is becoming time to do is just take a moment and be with what you feel. This eclipse is greatly centered around your emotional and somatic system. We've got the emotional with Scorpio, somatic with Taurus. What do you feel? And I focused on this in the last lunation eclipse as well, because this isn't about your mind. Your mind is useless in this crossroads. There are some choices that are way too big for your mind. Now, there's some that are appropriately sized for your mind. Hey, what am I having for breakfast? And what am I watching on Netflix tonight? What am I, What am I doing with my day tomorrow? Great, get your mind in there. But what karma am I generating in the patterns I'm still running from 5 years old for my life? How do I change that karma? Your mind is not involved in this. You're negotiating other things, other forces in you that express through your mind or communicate to the mind, but your mind is the caboose here. So one just, I'd say, caution I'd offer: don't believe the hype about mindset, because I think it's very misplaced. Now, just consider that, because what I want you in is, and I think this eclipse as well, as your guide, I want you in your emotional system. What do you really feel? Without any condition or I got to be good. I can just be right down bloody honest here. This is what I really feel. And then you can go into, you got to swear, do it. Good. Let's get to the mind a message from your emotional system. Let's get it. And then how does your body feel? What's going on with that? Are you embodied? Where are you? Where are you on your emotional timeline? Are you in time warps from trauma? Are you here? Are you in perception distortions because of time warps? Where's your energy? Where are you? Are you in your body? And if you're not, okay, why not? How can we get you here? This is where you belong. You have a soul contract to be here. Not back there, not there. We're not taking the past and pretending it's the future. Let's get it. And the eclipse is saying, I'm shutting this down for a minute. We got to get to your shadow. Now, getting to the shadow is tricky because there's a paradox here. To do shadow work requires an enormous amount of compassion for yourself. What did I just say? It requires an enormous amount of unconditional love. And if you can't pull that off, at least non-judgment. The more you judge things in your psyche, the more they hide. So, emotions are truth tellers. Now, you have to go to their truth to understand the bigger truth that they're telling sometimes. But they're truth tellers. That's why we don't like them. That's why we want to mentalize them. And this eclipse is like, that is going to keep you on repeat. That's just going to keep you on repeat. Why don't you feel what you really feel? And treat that as an intuitive guidance system, because that's exactly what it actually is. And let's see what opens up for you. And what will open up for you is something new. And now we're back to the parts of you that defend against the unknown, which is also in this eclipse. And how do those manage you moving 1 foot into the unknown? Oh my gosh. Chad just put 1 foot in the unknown. We're his team, keeping him safe. We're survival architect. Get your butt back here, Chad. Let's see who's going to go and get him back in line to the loop of repeat. Who on this archetypal team is okay? Shadow rescuer, perfect. Chad's going to go shadow rescue someone, lose all his energy there, maybe even some money, and then he's not going to have any energy to keep going toward the new. Done. And here we are. Something new comes from something new. And that goes from personal to collective again. So this is about the earth coming in to interrupt, eclipse your conscious awareness with a moment of shadow reflection. That's what the eclipse offers. I'm going to take the light away, says the earth, and I want you to reflect on that darkness I'm shadowing now, because it's the darkness in you. It's not right, wrong, good, or bad. It's technical. And if you can approach it with the cosmic heart, there it is, then you can alchemize, which is Scorpio, anything there. You can hug a dragon, and you can have a different option regarding your role as co-creator in this life. So the earth is coming in. Hey, I'm an eclipse. Have you do some shadow reflection. I'm giving you a whole shadow to look at. And this is going to have to deal with, yes, the Scorpio, but also Taurus aspects of your life. And it's both personal and collective. So what this comes down to finish this piece off, is this crossroads is a time to conclude something that has been a dominant force of repeat in your life. Now, we're all, near as I can tell, on some form of repeat, and that's okay. This isn't a perfectionist-driven exercise of making the choice to never repeat. You are repeating every day. And that's not a bad thing. Hey, I brush my teeth every day and floss. So I'm glad that repeat's in motion. I'm glad I have that. Repeat isn't necessarily good or bad, but there's karma for it. Guess what? Because I brush and floss my teeth, I still have teeth. Yay. So, but there are things that repeat keeps us stuck in a dimension of potential. We can't go out of that dimension. And man, I could just keep going because I teach courses on this all the time. However, let's get to the astrology slide. And let me just take a drink break because my voice is cracking a bit with my watermelon juice again. And let me tell you about the sponsor of this particular video. And let me give you all a shout out. So I did a course, I guess 4 years ago now, called actually Evolve or Repeat. And this is what it looks like on my website. Now, it's 50% off until the end of October. I want anyone and everyone that is really resonating with what I'm putting down here and wants to go further into an actual structure where you're guided over 6 hours through 3 lessons to be able to afford it. And I made it hopefully as affordable as possible to all of you. And there's a link in the video description you can click to go and check it out. And just as a reminder, the Cosmic Guidance Package is still available as well. And both of those will be gone. Well, this won't be gone. The sale will be over on the 31st in the Cosmic Guidance Package. Finally, I keep extending it because we keep getting these messages to do so. Will also be gone after that. So this course is, it's to me a classic of one of the things I've done. It's very powerful. It is about the emotional power of the power of emotional alchemy and how to be with dark emotions. It's really a training on how can you be with dark feelings? We're not taught that. And I think that's a big part of this crossroads. How can I be with some of the darker feelings? This eclipse is going to show me some dark stuff about and dark doesn't mean bad, actually. So let's let's disassociate these words. That dark doesn't mean bad. It can be hard. It can mean uncomfortable. But you might have trouble being with your joy, and or being with your light. There's light dimmers out there, and they're all over social media. As soon as they see you shine, they want to write some nasty stuff on your YouTube channel. I've been through some of this. They take the time out of their day to tell you how you need to dim down a bit. Yeah, that actually happened the last video I did, which surprised me because that was a very tamed down video for me. But how can we be with charged emotional states? And then from there, shift. Be with it first. I said this last time, feelings first, then let meaning be later. We want meaning immediately to get out of the feeling. And that's not actually how our systems are designed. That's also not how your intuition works either, by the way. Just FYI. If you want to get into what I call an intuitive prism distortion, something I'm going to be teaching in a course soon that's going to launch in November. It's called Vertical Intuition. More on that another time. But I identified in my work that we can distort what we're seeing through what I call prism distortion. And you're seeing something, but it's coming through, in this instance, an emotional way, an archetype or part of your emotional system, and it's not clear because the emotion hasn't been integrated yet enough to let you see past it with clarity. So your emotional system's part of your intuition. Yeah. And so is your somatic. Your body is like an antenna of intuitive information. Why do you think they say, I feel it in my gut? Because you literally do. All right. Let me give a shout out to some people. Lisa Bova. Hey, stranger. Kate Zimmer. Allison Waddle. Carolyn Yarbrough. Carolyn Willman. My peep Kate Zimmer. Tony Brewer. Amy Taylor. Hey, cool. All right. I may, in fact, indulge in a lozenge as well. So what we'll do next is we're going to Ricola. Just kidding. We're not going to yodel, but we are going to move to the actual eclipse chart. I'm going to break it down, pull some pieces out for you, and I'm going to walk you through Scorpio as it relates to Taurus and hopefully help you even more with the shift ahead at this crossroads in a week at this eclipse. It's already here. It's already building. But so I'm going to switch to my next camera and maybe make some adjustments as I do so we can talk about the chart. Now, remember, if you don't know astrology symbolism, which is going to be this, you can find probably something very similar to this online and print it up. It just has all the symbols. Sometimes they're called sigils of the zodiac signs and the planetary symbols as well. Now, in case you don't know, everyone has an actual full natal chart. And let me see if this is actually a natal chart. This could be interesting. I believe it is. Oh, there we go. There's a natal chart. You all have one of these. Whether you've had it, cast or not is another story. But you all have one of these, and that's how dynamic you are. I mean, you are that whole entire chart. You're not just your sun sign. You are everything in there, and you're evolving, in your destiny through your sun sign into becoming and exploring creativity in a different way than you ever have before as a soul. That's what the sun sign anchors. So that said, let's come to this chart, which is not a birth chart. It's an event chart. We call it in astrology. But what it shows is the actual eclipse ahead. And I'm going to just get that to focus a bit better. So what you're seeing here, when you have a lunar eclipse, this is the sun, and then this is the moon. They're in exact opposition. This is fully opposite at 5 degrees this time, Taurus, Scorpio. And this time, you've got a connection between the sun, Mars, and Mercury, which are all in a lineup here. Usually, we need more than 3 planets to call it a stellium in astrology, which is there's a bunch of planets together that are in the same sign right by each other. But I might just give this the name stellium anyway. And what this says is this sun in Scorpio that I have been talking about so far, right? It is also recruiting the energies of Mercury, your mind, and Mars, your sort of personal will. And, also it is about aggression in a healthy way. There's healthy aggression, but in a shadow way, it is about war. It is about, Ares, of course, was god of war. It is about, really, it's about this. How do you use this, if I could say, this is what this says up here. How do you use your energy and your mind in relationship to the Scorpio part of your psyche and your power? What patterns do you have inside of you? And just because you're not a sun in Scorpio, make no mistake, you do have a Scorpio part of your psyche. Everyone does. Everyone's the whole chart. Everyone contains all the archetypes of astrology in them in different proportion. And that's what the planets start talking about. So how do you, everybody's got an emotional system and a shadow. This is Scorpio. And where are you at with this? Like how do things function as a pattern in you? Where are you on repeat with action, your mind, and your life force is being channeled into this repeat in a way that is not nourishing, does not birth something new in the Taurus down here. And so you could look at this eclipse, as I've already presented, as a question. Will you evolve or will you repeat? Well, what's this going to anchor into? It's anchoring into the stuff going on down here with Taurus. This is Taurus, and this is the moon and Jupiter. Jupiter is red because it's retrograding right now, and it'll be retrograde until December 30th. And in its retrograde, it is actually channeling up with the moon here to connect and actually deepen what this eclipse is about. It is about how are we going to come to some kind of nourishing new way to be on this planet within its resources, within its limits, within its beauty, within the beauty we're losing in this mass extinction event we're in with animals. All the stuff you read is happening. And it's horrible to hold, and it's hard to look at. But guess what? We're in the same psychic field of every species here, so we feel it. And whether you're tuned in or not, it still affects you. And if you're an empath or an empathic soul, I call it, you really feel it. So if you are an empathic soul, this eclipse is massive. If you're someone let me say it another way, you consider yourself to be hypersensitive. You feel the emotional states of others very easily. You also need to understand you feel the emotional states of countries, of mass events like war. You also feel that. So if you're having a day where you're like, I don't know why, but I feel like shit, turn on the news, see what's happening in the world. You might have gotten a psychic wave into your own field of some event. Or maybe it's just one of the species that just went extinct. Maybe it's the polar bear hoping it makes it through another year that you're feeling. Honestly, if we're going to say everything is interrelated and everything connects and is interconnected, that's once again, not just something we play with when it's convenient. This is what it looks like in the real world, in the real way. And that's part of what this eclipse is bringing forward. So how are we going to now, another question at this crossroads, because this is Taurus and it does deal with money, finances, if you will, resources of all kinds, but certainly money. How are we going to re-relate to what we call abundance and what we might call survival stability? And how are we going to re-relate to how we as a world do commerce amongst each other and need the resources of other countries? And when they're in a war, it's not so good for Europe when Ukraine can't, give their wheat up, for example. So this is a big crossroads question, it's part of it. And in your own personal life, this would probably really center around as well. How do you feel about being in your body? Are you in your body? And in a time, I'm going to come back to camera because it just feels weird not to be on camera for a little bit here. In a time when we are so much in our phones, on the internet, not really in our body. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I have, where you're on your phone and then like 2 hours kind of go by and you're like, where the fuck have I been? Oh my God. It's almost like you're in another dimension, because actually your consciousness really is. And I think we need to really start to understand the energetics and technical process that's happening then. You're not in your body anymore. And your phone, I'll do a social live on this if you all want. Your phone becomes an extension of your psyche. Those apps represent software in your psyche now, space in your psyche being taken up by that app. You better check your apps out. Maybe you need to delete some. I don't know. But think about this. And now there is, let me come back to the chart because this is actually in the chart. Where's the chart? There it is. There is this question about AI. And so you've got Uranus in Taurus here, where it's been for quite some time. It's kind of mid-cycle, meaning it's past 15 degrees. It's headed to the early 20s in its retrograde cycle, doing its process. And this opposition, and then you've got Neptune opposition with Venus here. It's kind of wide, but I'm keeping it. And then, and I talked about this last time, this is what's going to take us into Scorpio a little bit. You've got Saturn and Pisces retrograde stationed just slowly at 0 degrees, getting ready to station direct. And it is the question of, will you evolve now into a mystically mature adult? So for me, Saturn and Pisces isn't about what you maybe have heard around astrology being, astrology and how it's defined being, well, it's going to be a time of challenge because Saturn wants structure and Pisces is the nebulous ocean that can't be structured. Ask yourself a question. Does that do anything for you in terms of guide you? It doesn't for me. But what I could tell you intuitively is what this is about. It's about, we are being under a task of Saturn now. We're under this task of, because Saturn's about maturing, of growing into Pisces, mystically mature adults. Saturn rules the adult archetype. And what does that look like? How is that going to roll? How are you going to work with Pisces as a mature, mystically attuned adult. That's exactly what I covered for 11 lessons in my cosmic guidance package when I did the Saturn and Pisces. It's way too big to bring in here, but I'm going to once again bring the cosmic heart here because it's part of the lesson. In every lesson that I did in that series, there was a journey from the human heart to cosmic heart involved in every lesson. And there's 11 parts, but there's actually 12 lessons in the Saturn journey of maturing to becoming a mystically mature adult. So that would involve a shift from the human heart to the cosmic heart. Now, check out what Saturn is doing. It's sextiling all this Taurus stuff right here, the moon that's being opposed, and it's recruited into the whole eclipse. So Pluto is squaring the nodal axis still, and that is about, all right, where are you at on your karmic path, humanity? Where are you at on your karmic path, you and me, when it comes to how your social structures work? And Capricorn's about capitalism and really kind of any governmental structure, but I'd look to the dominant ones and their shadow side as they've created our reality and how they have shaped our Taurian home, which is planet Earth. So that's all here. And this eclipse comes in, and it's like, you're going to grow up to become a mystically mature adult. Well, guess what a mystically mature adult does? It does shadow work. Part one. Part two, it has a practice of connecting with the cosmic heart every day in as much as you can. Now, there's days that it's harder and days where you're just like, whoa. And usually when I connect to the cosmic heart, I just cry. And I just have this feeling of warm love rush over me and compassion for myself and a sense of we really are all connected. Even what we would call the most evil among us is part of God. Mystical truth. We don't have to like it. I don't like that truth, but it is the truth. All is God, right? And then we can spin into things like quantum physics, start to prove interconnectivity and all sorts of non-local dynamics with energy and particles and waves. I mean, we could go on and on. But let's get back to the task at hand, which is this crossroads. I think where I want to go now is the moon dealing with the unconscious and also within the unconscious, subconscious mind, and most notably in this case, the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind's software, and which is something I call your archetypal teams or shadow archetypes usually, or survival archetypes of adaptation, and how those are patterns, the patterns you live. And sometimes they break down as specifically as your habits. But these are most notably, once again, the patterns that have you on repeat that you see in yourself, but this is also about the patterns of the world that are on repeat. And us having to become aware of the forces and powers that be in the world that want it that way. So big oil doesn't want us going to renewable energy, not at all. It likes the repeat of fossil fuels, of course. Even though, I mean, come on, how hot was it where you live this summer? You know, did you have tornadoes during Christmas time? Or, there's just stuff going on that's just like, well, come on. And that is now where I want to head. Having said that, I want to head into Scorpio as it relates to Taurus. The relationship here is this. What we birth through our Taurus energy and power and patterns often is sourced from sometimes the darker side of who we are, if we're honest. And though the goal of shadow work, aside from repeat, is to get conscious choice in what we co-create. Now, I got to mention something about the word co-create, because this is something a mystically mature adult would reframe. There's a lot, and we're in Taurus. This is about the solid, most manifested aspects of energy, which the earth embodies. And you have a lot going on within people, within spirituality and self-help, and let's say metaphysics, that focuses on manifestation, like as an actual practice and philosophy. I don't like that word. It's very off-putting to me because it's not, to me, congruent with the true co-creative nature of that Taurus speaks to, of how things actually manifest. Whenever you create anything, and just track with me because I think this is going to make sense. Whenever you create anything, no matter what it is, you alone did not manifest that. You're part of a whole matrix of energy. And I would say you co-created something versus manifest. That to me feels more mature because it recognizes, look, how much can a person in North Korea do with their life path? How much of their vision board would actually come to pass when everyone has to bow before the dictator there? We are absolutely dependent on the environments we live in when it comes to what we can and cannot create. And this is Taurus. And this is what I covered in the Jupiter retrograde in Taurus. And this is where the moon comes in. I want you to get an image of the gardener archetype. It's a Taurian archetype. I'm going to plant a seed and I'm going to grow it and get it to finally, I don't know, become a tomato. But there's a lot that has to happen before that tomato is ripe and you pick it. The soil's got to be okay. It's got to be tended to. You can't have toxins in it. You've got to have enough sunlight. You've got to have enough stable weather so that hail doesn't damage it when it's growing. I could go on. But that's all the co of creation. There's co's. Your dreams, seeds, who you want to be are no different. They cannot grow. So what can grow in the soil of Ukraine right now during a war? What's actually possible? A mystically mature adult's going to go, well, it's definitely limited. Because the number one thing right now in any place where there's war is just, I hope I survive. And yet we have a bit of and this is the shadow, this is Scorpio, the narcissistic kind of spirituality a lot of us have studied, which I have as well, long time ago. So I'm more seasoned here. And after a lot of readings, I matured out of a lot of it. But you have to always know there are karmic codes every time you create something. This live or this video is co-created because I'm at the codependence of whoever created this camera, this microphone, the internet, and the food I ate that has given me the energy to do this. The lights that are on me, I didn't create those. Everything you see right now is a co-creation. And I think it's important maybe to shift our language in this direction because it then lets us make moves in transforming the codes we don't like climate change. You might want to live, I don't know, on the sunny beaches of Florida, but in the next 10 years, that may not actually be something you can even do because hurricane season is all year. I'm riffing around to make points. I'm not saying that's actually going to happen, but I'm just saying, listen, there's codes here. And this is what this eclipse also addresses. Look, this is the shadow work. Now, tracking past the that's the Taurus part, by the way. That moon is conjunct Jupiter retrograde in Taurus. And Jupiter as an energy is your intuition. It's the bigger meta view. But what does intuition see? It sees the shadow side of things that your eyes don't. And as an intuitive, I'd always say, you know what? I'm reading people's blind sides. It's what I primarily do. I'm reading your shadow. Otherwise, you wouldn't come to me. You'd see it. You'd be like, I don't need a reading. I can see it. And we all have one. So this is where we go to, okay, Jupiter retrograde is about going into the shadow side of how we relate to our beliefs around Taurus and how we're not in alignment with the laws of the ecosystem, let alone the atmosphere. So are we going to grow, do some shadow work and grow out of the kind of ways we have not been willing to actually see the true karma in the room? I'm not controlling tornadoes, nor are you, any more than a tsunami or an earthquake, or there are just things on this planet that you want a co-creator, there you go. The Earth's crust buckling as it does. A volcano, that's something that's bigger. There are so many more things bigger than us that we just don't want to look at. And that's very immature in a sense of like, if I'm going to be a co-creator, I might want to know the codes that I'm going to have to work with here to plant the seed, nurture it to grow into whatever my vision or dream is. That's part of this crossroads. Where you want to repeat that doesn't let you mature into that kind of new territory of adulthood, really, mystical adulthood. And where is that playing out, once again, in everything you're in a relationship to, from personal to collective to politics? We're in a relationship to everything. And where's your cosmic heart? Where's your cosmic heart? Do you have a connection to one? I really believe we all have touched into that force, that unconditional, loving Christ consciousness that is not a mental thing. It's an experiential one. You feel it in your body, your emotional, your spiritual system. You don't feel it. Your mind can go, ooh, whoa, look, I'm feeling this thing. And then you're going to have to go to music, song, or art to communicate to everyone else what just happened to you. That's mystical territory. And it's paradoxical. It is not either or. It is both and most of the time. And ironically, in both and includes either or, because it is all. See, paradox, paradox, paradox. Now, going into Scorpio's pattern, before we shut this down, as I mentioned earlier, the first level of the Scorpio pattern is the Scorpion. And I always tell the story about, it's when I learned from my first astrology teacher around the frog that is swimming in the river and sees a scorpion on the side of the bank. And the scorpion says, hey, I want to get across the river. Can I get on your back? And the frog looks at the scorpion and he's like, hell no. You're ugly. You got a stinger. No. So the scorpion decides, well, I'm gonna get on your back. I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna manipulate you. So the scorpion goes after the frog's vulnerable ego and says, oh, well, I bet you couldn't get me across anyway. You look too weak. So triggers the frog in his ego, his wounded ego, really, his insecure ego. And the frog then goes, oh yeah, well, get on my back. I'll show you. So Scorpion gets on his back just as they're mid-river. The Scorpion goes, he's going to get me across and then I'm going to lose. So he decides to sting the frog while they're mid-river, not thinking past the fact that now he's going to drown because he can't swim. So he stings the frog and the frog looks at him and is like, why did you do that? Now we're both going to drown. And the Scorpion's like, it doesn't matter. You deserved it. And then they both die. It represents a level of consciousness within our emotional system where we act that way. Someone calls us a name, so we got to call them a name back. We can't let something go. We have to have the last word. We are not vertical enough or mature enough to walk away or turn the other cheek or forgive. That does not happen at this level. And I really, as an intuitive, I don't look at things per se as right or wrong. There's karma for, this kind of pattern. And it's, to me, just technical. So the next journey up in evolution is to the snake level of Scorpio. And this is after we, in this behavior, because what that looks like in real life for us is through that kind of emotional system, we sabotage ourselves. Who wants to be around someone who's always stinging you? At some point, you're going to, sabotage yourself into a divorce or a job you lose, or the karma will come to fruition in that pattern. And then when that happens, think about this for your own life, because we've all been the Scorpion. What did we do? Personally, I went to therapy, and that is the snake. The snake is, okay, why am I stinging people? That when it just hurts me. Why am I doing that? So then we go to the snake. And then in that, we get into psychotherapy and we start to look around in the shadow and maybe look at our trauma, wherever we're guided. And then from there, we start to get traction in why we do what we do. And with traction comes choice. And perhaps we start to experiment with different choices, and different archetypes start to activate in us that make those choices and support a new system of choice in us. And once you're there long enough, you shed skin after skin, just like the snake, you grow. And then you evolve into the eagle. And in the eagle form of Scorpio, now remember, this is all happening within your emotional system, actually, the emotional part of your psyche and your shadow. With the eagle level, now you are at a place where you see things from a different vantage point. Eagles can get up high, they can fly, they can look down and see the bigger picture. It's like Jupiter on Mount Olympus. And you're making decisions karmically from a much vaster perspective. So the eagle's like, you can call me a name, but I'm not coming down out of my flight because the view's too great up here. I don't have time for it. I'm going to probably go, catch a fish, go feed my young, all that kind of stuff. But it's going to take more than just name calling or whatever you got to manipulate me to get me out of this flight. I'm too sharp. I'm too powerful. My sight is too great. But fuck with my kids, fuck with my nest. I'm coming for you. Because I do still connect deeply with survival. And that's something to be important. That's something very important to notice about the eagle. You're still wired to survival reality, but there's one more level. And this is a great level. I love the eagle. I think it's where most human beings can get with good therapy and a good spiritual director. Then there's the phoenix. And at the phoenix level, what the shift is that survival reality no longer has any say in what you choose. You've already died. You've burnt up and you're the phoenix from the flames. You've already died. Survival reality has no control over your emotional system anymore. And you cannot mentalize your way into this. This is a spiritual, metaphysical shift. It has nothing to do with your mind. And there's few people that live in this or carry a part of it. I would say Martin Luther King Jr. was someone who did, because he knew all the time his life was under threat, but you were not shutting him up. Or Jesus Christ. Anyone that's come down and lived a life of living within threat, but living from oneness and compassion, and that was the cosmic heart in them driving and choosing, that's the phoenix. So, I don't know about you, but I'm good with the eagle. You know what I'm saying? But that's just to give you an example. Now, I want you to find yourself in what I said, because at this eclipse, you will find yourself in what I said. And you're going to find your crossroads. And this is how you negotiate the crossroads. Well, I think I'm asked to evolve to snake. Maybe you got to, hey, take the leap. Yay. Maybe I'm leveling up from snake to eagle in this area. Or maybe I had a phoenix. I think I have a phoenix in the house. Okay. The question is still the same. Will you evolve or repeat? So I want you to take everything I said and apply it to where you're at over the next week, to really 2 weeks. And as we come closer to this actual eclipse on October 28th, you might find that these things start to really pressure and build. Now, recruiting the last eclipse into the mix before I finish here, this once again does greatly deal with our relationships and how we're going to cooperatively live within the laws of Gaia and honor them as just as sacred as the laws of cosmic creation, where we watch a universe or galaxy be born. It's all the same value. And we, in a patriarchal, very religiously, I think, structured psychic society. In other words, whether you believe in religion or not, doesn't matter. It's the psychic structure of patriarchy and heaven versus earth that still has you. And someone will say, oh, well, it doesn't have me, and I'll watch their language. And as soon as I hear how heaven is the real place where we go, and it's the better place. I got him. Because you just put a value of heaven being better than here. And as Joseph Campbell said in his brilliant work, what he realized after studying all these mythologies was that if you don't find heaven here, you're not finding it anywhere. Because this is it. This is just a more denser expression of the one. Has no lesser value than the one that's energetic or the one that is light. And how do you then live as a co-creator in these truths? So that's what I think is on offer here. It's a lot of healing. It's a great chance to heal and get in your body and be present and feel your life and be here for it. And also, when you're here, you're guidable by your intuition. Your intuition doesn't have to go back through a time warp to get you to, make the next move of service to the world. It can go, turn right up there. Okay. Looks dangerous. Yeah, it is. Okay. So this is where we are. And take whatever I'm saying and bring it to your own self and take it below your head, into your body, into your butt, into your feet, into your heart, into your hearts, cosmic and human, and let it all just be okay. You don't have to like it, but can you let it be okay? So I hope this really helps everybody with where you're at in your life. Once again, I can't say enough about if this is something you want some more guidance with, avail yourself to this course. I just cut the price massively so that hopefully you could. It's absolutely dynamic in terms of helping you get into a systematic way to be with dark emotions and then engage in the power of emotional alchemy. As I was speaking about all the stages of Scorpio, that's emotional alchemy. It's emotional, psychological, psychospiritual alchemy, but we're not taught it. We're just not really. And I think a lot of us lean to spirituality to try to get it. And we're once again told to go mental there, mentalize the emotion. Don't be with that dark emotion. Think on, focus on the light. And that's not how our systems are designed, organically designed as co-creators. Actually, that's just going to shove whatever is generating that emotion for you deeper in your shadow. And that dragon's going to breathe more fire and you're going to become more of a scorpion. Come on. You could devolve. I think that's possible. I've seen people do it. I've never seen necessarily an eagle fall out of the sky and become a scorpion, but I sure have seen some snakes right back to scorpion. Just saying. And hey, it's all about learning. It's about loving ourselves in that learning and being with us, being with yourself emotionally, no matter what, no matter which dragon happens to be present that day. And maybe we can then give each other some slack for our reactivity and our emotions and, which have been on high intensity since things with Israel and Gaza and Hamas broke out, which makes sense. These are atrocities. These are horrible events, holistically horrible. And without even choosing sides, they're holistically awful. But how do we evolve and not repeat? And that's something you have to feel through. And that's the point of this crossroads. You can't think your way through this crossroads. You got to feel through it. If you get into here, you're going to exclude all this other important emotional information and you will repeat. I absolutely promise you will repeat. It might not look like it at first, but you are repeating. So take whatever I've said, feel it out and see what's true for you. And thanks for joining me. I'm going to see if anyone has any questions real quick, maybe for 5 minutes. And if not, that's cool. And it's a lot to take in. And then I will see you next week in another social live. We're social live and all the way till the end of the year. So I'm excited. It's fun for me to teach. I love teaching. So any questions, you can write them in the comment section on YouTube or Facebook and I'll see them. They all kind of amalgamate for me right in the middle there. So, and I can actually put them on the screen for a short while so everyone can see your question too. And while you're hopefully doing that, I'm going to Drink some watermelon juice. Again, this has magnesium. It's all good. I mean, not happy about the plastic, just saying, but oh, you guys are so welcome. I'm just getting lots of gratitude. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. You know, and if you repeat, you got to love yourself no matter what. You got to love yourself in your repeat. That's the only way you evolve. Shaming yourself or judging yourself does not get you out of repeat. It just drives you further in. That's when you turn to a higher heart, a higher power called the cosmic heart, and you go, look, I can't even love me right now. Can you love me? Yes, I can, says the cosmic heart. And next thing you know, shooting light right into you. I really mean that. All right. Okay. Well, I don't see any questions. I always find that this is like me when I would do readings. I'd be like, do you have any questions to the client? And they'd be like, no. I got to go process. So, okay, here's a good question. All right. Velma's got a question. Thank you, Velma. Let me just put this up on the, there we go. Velma G in the house on a YouTube. Can we be at different levels in different areas of our life? Yes, absolutely. Great question. That's absolutely right. And that's the thing is, the thing that's most urgent in your evolution is what would be most animated or triggered up in this eclipse. And if you look to the collective, that's where we can see that. Like what's most urgent probably collectively is war and a possibility of a war growing past certain borders. So that's going to have a lot of focus, right? Well, your personal system would be the same. Like what's most important to the holism of your system that is not in a sense of flow, or it's on repeat in ways that are, the sabotage just keeps piling up and the toll is, karmic toll just keeps growing. Well, that's the thing that I would imagine will come up most. But we're all in repeat somewhere and evolving somewhere. This eclipse just really focuses and activates, as per everything I've said, with a new voltage, something really crucial and important. So when the Earth comes between the sun and the moon, you want to pay attention. And it stops the sunlight for a minute and goes, hey, it's Gaia, listen up. There's a shadow for y'all, right? So, yeah, so definitely. And if you're interested, by the way, in the Saturn in Pisces, 12 Lessons in Mystical Maturity, that is in my Cosmic Guidance package. Both of these things are on the homepage of ohado.com right now and will be available until the end of October. The Cosmic Guidance package is also discounted $50. So hopefully that'll help too. Just FYI, because you might really want to dive into some of that material. It's very, very, very powerful. What is a good, so let's take this one and then I'm going to finish. Christine Palmer from Facebook. What is a good question to ask your cosmic heart to help stop the repeats? Okay, so this is a great thing to end on. Thank you, Christine. One of the things I see that I think is a problem in a lot of the guidance out there these days for all of us seekers, people trying to heal and grow into mystically mature adults, is there's a lot of focus on the self as the only power source in transformation. So whether that's law of attraction, putting the focus on you are the only vibration and it's your vibration alone that's going to matter in terms of your manifestation, which is absolutely, to me, truly, honestly, just BS. Because once again, I'm in North Korea and you're telling me that my vibration is going to become more powerful than the dictatorship of my country, really? Or I don't know, the wildfire coming from my house. I'm just going to stand there and focus on my vibration. I mean, we're in a sea of vibrations that all interrelate and interact and intershift each other. So that's just, you take it to the streets and these things fall apart, So that said, when you're in that kind of mentality, you're also saying it's only your power that matters. And there are situations where that's true. Your power is the most important resource, and your empowerment in a situation, perhaps sometimes, or choices you have to make, absolutely, that can be true. But when you're dealing with, as you asked, hey, my human heart is barely hanging on, let alone making contact with the cosmic one, Robert, what do I do? Well, this is where your spirituality hits the streets, and you do what I call is a soul prayer. And a soul prayer, I say soul prayer because I differentiate that from a wounded ego prayer. A wounded ego prayer would want to control someone or control a situation, or so let's say you're in a divorce or someone, you're having a relationship issue, and your prayer is this: please don't let them leave me, or help them become more forgiving, or change them, right? That's not going to get traction with the divine, because you're not owning your power, and you're also expecting your healing to be about someone else becoming something other than they are, so you can finally feel safe and heal and stay in the relationship. What if you're just not meant to stay in it? What if this is the end? That's what you agreed to on a soul contract level. So this is where soul prayers come in. So a soul prayer in this situation would be, I don't know if we're meant to stay together. I can't read that right now. I'm too emotionally spun up. My compass is crazy. So I'm going to leave it to a higher set of eyes that sees more than I can right now to guide what's next. That's my prayer. Guide what's next. If it's stay or go, just make it clear and help me accept that, because I don't think I probably will be able to do that very easily. Help me accept that. And what I'm saying to you is very personal to me, because I've said a lot of soul prayers, man, in my life, and every one of them was answered without exception. And sometimes they were life or death prayers for me, especially as a kid. So I'm a testament that I'm not the only power in play here in my life. And conversely, doors of opportunity have opened for me in my life that I couldn't have strategized or manifested on my best day. I didn't even know they existed. So when we talk about the nature of miracles or the nature of some power intervening or divine intervention, we're in a territory now of what I'm speaking to. And sometimes that happens without even a prayer. And your life is saved, or you're saved from really serious harm, and you didn't even know that it happened so fast. Like, you didn't even know that was the situation. And you take a step back after the event, you're like, whoa, I'm alive. How? And it wasn't you. So, quick example, I can't help myself. The storyteller wants to come out. I was riding my road bike in Boulder, Colorado, and I was coming down a hill, and it was my first time on my new road bike. And I came into some gravel at the very bottom of this very steep hill. And I hadn't really ridden a road bike before. This is like 10 years ago. And I didn't understand how they handled gravel. So suddenly I start to feel my wheels as I'm turning this corner, going about 40 miles an hour on gravel, spinning out under me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to wipe out. This is going to be bad. And at the same time, instantly, I felt this force on the side that was wiping down push me up and came through my body into my hands and braked me, hit the brakes on my bike in a certain way. And within about 10 seconds, I did not wipe out, and I suddenly was stable back on pavement. And it was so fast, I didn't have a time to utter a soul prayer. I was ready for okay, here goes the left side of my, body. Skin's gonna get torn off. I've seen other cyclists bite it like this. It ain't pretty. Hope I don't have to go to the emergency room. And that was something greater than me. That exists. And you can soul prayer. But soul prayers come from a very astute understanding of power and powerlessness in you. Because what you say in a soul prayer is, I don't have the power for this. The greater grid of life and the divine does, and I'm calling on you now. But that power doesn't opt you out of your lessons. It'll help you through them, but it won't opt you out of lessons. So Back to a, maybe a divorce. Hey, maybe the best thing is divorce. If it is, let that be clear for us. I am not going to put conditions on how you're going to answer this for me. I'm just letting you know my heart needs you. And I need your light. I need your guidance. My eyes can't see in this darkness, but yours can. Those prayers, man, I am telling you, I've never not seen one get answered. And I've had days where you wake up and you just feel like you feel beat up and you just don't know how am I going to get through this day. I can't, positive, whatever. That's the last thing I feel like being. But you say a prayer, move me into a positive state. And by the end, then that's the day for me. Someone writes me a beautiful email, thanking me for my work or thanking me, or just something beautiful comes through and lifts me up just that little bit to, I don't know, believe in people again, believe in myself again that day. And I've got, thousands of students that have been working within these teachings that would tell you the same exact thing. So at this crossroads, not only yield to higher power, invoke it in whatever way feels right for you. I'm a fan of prayer like that. And I like candles like I'm a church. And, I've got my own little things that work for me that I find to be incredibly powerful and useful. And so whatever works for you, but just start to watch how you pray. It reveals a lot about you. And not judge that, but go, okay, it's my wounded ego sending up a prayer. And then it becomes kind of funny, make that person nicer, have that person love me, have that person stop being a taker. Yeah. Well, you don't have power for any of those things to even begin to move, really. And your higher power, the cosmic heart, is going to be like, that's not, the lesson is shift yourself so that your magnetics change and you relate differently and you can recognize the vampire from across the street and you do not invite them back into your house. That's what's up, Anyway, so much love to all of you. Thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed this. I certainly did. And I'll see you next week. I don't even know what the topic is. I just came up with 2 days ago. So, but I'll have something up for you next Friday again. Check out the courses. I really hope you do. I hope you guys can take this course. It's great. And it's available now, the whole thing. And I will see you next week. Namaste.